Now you can see we are not aiming, and if I aim, we change position, and then we return to the other position. In the previous video, we built the base locomotion system for our character, but something important is still missing. When the player aims with a weapon, the character should also enter in an aiming position. In this video, we're going to take the animation system we already have and add a new aiming animation that activates when the player aims and it smoothly returns to the default pose when the player stops aiming. This is the game creator Accelerator, and I am Tony Munoz. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episodes of Mad Gameverse, where we are building our entire third-person shooter step by step, and every line of code is here free for you on this channel. And because building a path in the gaming industry is not just about coding, I want to invite you to my free training at boolean.com/free training, where I share the methodology and the strategies to build a successful path in the gaming industry. Everything in that training comes from my 13 years of industry experience and from studying what successful independent developers are doing today and what the rest are failing to do. Now, let's get started. Let's show the situation at this moment. As you can see, we already implemented the change of field of view of the camera and also the animation of the crosshair. Nevertheless, when we aiming, the character is not posing in an aiming position, and that's exactly what we want to do today. The first step will be to find the animation or the pose that we are going to use. Lucky for us, the Paragon characters comes with a lot of poses and animations. So let's go to the folder of our character, which is the Paragon Wraith, Characters, Heroes, Wraith, Animations, and inside that folder, go for the Locomotion Combat. And then in AO, you can start inspecting the animations, the different animations that you have at this moment. The one I'm looking for is this one. Let's open it. As you can see, this is the perfect pose when we are aiming. It's going to look fantastic when this character is aiming. And then we'll move to the other idle position. Let's close this one and make a copy that we'll save because we want to keep the order of our project in the animations of our own character. So drag this one inside Animations and copy here. Now click on this folder and let's look for that animation, which was idle AOCC. And because this doesn't give us a lot of information, let's rename it to idle aiming pose and GB, which is the game version. Now let's open our new animation, and in the asset details, look for additive settings. For the parameter of additive anim type, instead of mesh space, we're going to use no additive. And now let me take a moment to explain what this additive anim type means. This is where we tell Unreal whether this animation should behave like a normal animation or like an additive animation. But what does this additive animation actually mean? Normally, an animation completely defines the pose of the character. For example, when you are in an idle animation, a walk animation, or a run animation, they fully control how the character moves. It is inside those animations. But sometimes we do not want to replace the current animation. We only want to add a modification on top of that animation. That is the concept behind the additive animation. And I'm sorry that I've said animation a lot of times, but it is needed. At this moment, we select the no additive, which means that the animation is a normal animation. It fully defines the character pose and replaces whatever animation was playing before. And this is the one that we're going to use at this moment. The other options are local space, where the difference between poses is calculated relative to the bone hierarchy. Say it in a different way, each bone moves relative to its parent bone. This is the type that it is often used when like breathing, like recoiling, or small pose adjustments. And the third option is mesh space. Mesh space calculates the animation relative to the entire character mesh instead of a bone hierarchy. Now, at this moment, as I mentioned, we're going to use the no additive. Let's save and close the animation and go back to our map. Now we're going to prepare our animation blueprint. Remember that in characters, in Wraith, let me remove this, we have a blueprint that is called Shooter Wraith Anim Blueprint. Open this one. And let's go back to the anim graph. This is the current anim graph at this point. You can find in previous videos how we get here. But to explain it pretty simple, we have a locomotion movement. We use this cache locomotion to pass it and have a ground locomotion with weapon fire slot. And then we blend these two to generate the final output pose that we have at this moment. The first thing we're going to do is disconnect this one. Let's move the output pose to one side and create a new cache that we will name cached ground locomotion and weapon fire. Select all this, C for adding a comment, and let's name this blend between ground locomotion and weapon fire. And let me copy this same color we have here for this comment. Awesome. And move the output pose. In case that you're asking yourself or you don't remember what is a catch pose, well, a catch pose is in an animation blueprint is simply a saved animation result. Instead of recalculating the entire same animation logic multiple times, Unreal calculates it just once. Then it stores the result and let us reuse that pose anywhere in the anim graph. And I don't have to say that this keeps the animation graph cleaner and a lot more efficient. So in simple terms, a catch pose is just an animation pose that we compute once and reuse wherever we need it. In our case, this new catch ground locomotion and weapon fire represents all this we did. And now I can call this one whatever I want. Now we're going to add a new state machine. So right click and look for state machine and select this one. Let's rename it aiming upper body. Why? Because we want to have that vision of the upper body that is aiming. So it's a very clear and logical name. Let's open it. And now you have two options. You can create a state and then assign the animation, or you just can go for the animation we just added, which is the idle aiming pose GB. Drag it inside the map state, and now just connect these two. Save the pose, and let's go back to the anim graph. Now from the aiming upper body, drag a wire, and let's catch this. New saved catch, and let's name it catched aiming upper body. Select these two, add a comment with the C key, and name it idle aiming upper body. And again, let me take this color and copy it here. Command C, cancel, click here, and paste here, and OK. I love the blue color. And now that we have our two catch poses, we're going to blend them again. So right click, use catched, and the first one will be the one that we set a moment ago here. And the second, use catched, the one about the upper body, this one. For the first one, drag a wire and look for layered blend per bone and connect the second one in the second blend pose. Having selected the layer blend per bone, go to details, to the layer setup, open it, and we're going to add a new branch filter. So click on this plus, and for the bone name, we will use spine 01. Why spine 01? Well, remember that in our character, let's open here in the blueprint and look for the skeletal mesh and click here on the skeletal. We have this spine _01, which is located in this position. It is usually over the pelvis and is the perfect point to make this blend space, but it has to have the same name as it is on the skeleton. Let's go back to our animation and let's connect the output pose to the layer blend per bone. Compile, save, and let's go to map to test it. Here is our position. You can see it is aiming, pretty cool, but It is using one animation that I really want to eliminate at this point. So let's do the next. Let's go back to our animation blueprint, go to the top where it says the locomotion movement, click to open that state machine, and click this state, which is the idle. Instead of using this animation, I'm going to use another one that is called idle AOCC non-combat pose, but I need to make a copy for my own library. So let's go to this one, right click, browse in assets, and let's drag a copy to our own animations. Make a copy, get to the animations, let's find it, idle, and here it is. So I'm going to rename this one idle non-combat pose, and at the end, GV. Here it is. Let's go back to our shooter blueprint, and now let's go for the version of GV, which is the idle non-combat pose. Look that it is just a pose, it has no animations. Drag it inside and just connect it to the result. And now remove this one. Compile, save, and let's go back to our anim graph. Let's test it, and now we have a fixed pose, but as you can see, it is consistently just aiming. This is something we're going to fix right now. And if we shoot, we don't have any recoil. That's something that we can fix quickly. Let's go back to our shooter rate anim BP, and there is this parameter in the layer blend per bone, which is the blend weight. Let's move this one from 1 to, let's say, 0.9. Compile, save, and test it. So here we have our pose. It's looking great, and if I shoot, you can see a small recoil. Now, the problem I have is that this pose is static. Now it is always aiming, and this is not exactly what we want. Let's fix that. Before we continue, I want to let you know that this channel is part of a bigger journey called the Game Creator Accelerator Mentorship. This program is designed for people with limited time who want guidance to build a real path in the gaming industry. The goal is pretty simple, a real transformation into a game creator. Not just watching tutorials, but developing the right skills, building impactful games, and creating a presence so studios, recruiters, and players can see your work. Inside the program, we build games in Unreal Engine, solve real development challenges, and grow your online presence so your creations start opening doors. If you want to learn more about this approach, take my free training at boolean.com/free training. The link is in the top right corner of this screen and also in the description. And remember, your future in game development does not start someday. It starts the moment you decide to build it. We need to pass a parameter from C++ from our code to the blueprint so it indicates if we are aiming or if we are not aiming, so we can change the animation. Go to the button where we have our classes, Shooter Oasis, and open the player anim instance. Open the header file, and at the end of the private section, let's add a boolean name B is aiming. By default, the value will be false. And I'm going to copy this uProperty that we have on the top, which is uProperty visible anywhere, blueprint read only, category, player, and meta, allow private access true. And the comment, as you can imagine, will be true if the character is aiming, false otherwise. Now, this B is aiming is controlled not here on this class, but on the class of the shooter character. So let's open this one and then go to the header for the shooter character. There is a parameter called B is aiming. Here it is. And because this parameter is inside the protected section inside the header, I need to create a getter to obtain this information and use it in the player anim instance. So let's go to the button, and in the public section, add another force inline bool is aiming. In fact, I'm going to call it get is aiming, and what will return is B is aiming. Let's fix this comment. Now it's perfect. Let's save this one and open the player anim instance.cpp. Go to the end of the update anim properties. And here we're going to add B is aiming is equal to shooter character and use the method we just created, get is aiming. Here is an error. Oh, yeah, I wrote it incorrectly. B is aiming. Now it's right. Now confirm that you save all these changes. And then let's go back to Unreal. Let's compile. Now I can close all these windows. I don't need them. I'm just going to leave the animation blueprint. And here we're going to create a new state machine. And the name for this state machine will be aiming with hip. Open the state machine. Drag an arrow from the entry to a new state. And let's call this one not aiming, which will be the default. We can assume that as soon as the game starts, you are not aiming. From the not aiming, drag an arrow to another state that will be called aiming. And of course, we're going to switch between aiming also to not aiming. Now, what will be the poses for not aiming and aiming? Well, let me close all this for a second because I have many things open. And you can go to the anim graph and remember that we created this catch, ground, locomotion, and weapon fire. The great thing is that we can use this catch pose in the new state of not aiming. So let's go to the not aiming, open it, right click, and look for cached, ground locomotion, and weapon fire, and connect it here. Move back, and now let's go to the aiming. For the aiming, if you can remember, in the animation graph, we have the idle aiming upper body, which gives us this cache. That could be an option, but it does not include the blending with the rest of the animation that we just did. So what we need in this case is this entire section, but we haven't cached it yet. So let's disconnect this one, move it down, and catch it, cached, new save cached, and let's call it aiming, ground, locomotion, and fire. Let's select all these, C to make a comment, ground, locomotion with weapon, fire, and aiming. And again, let me copy this color and paste it here. This is the new cache that we are going to use. So go back to the aiming state, right click, and cached aiming, ground, locomotion, and fire, and connect this one. Let's go back. What rests is to define the transition rules. Let's go for the transition rule from not aiming to aiming. Double click here. In this case, we're going to use the is aiming. Aiming. So get is aiming, and if it's aiming, we're moving to the state of aiming. That's an easy one. Now backwards, it will be something similar. Is aiming, but we're going to negate this, not boolean, and connect it to this result. Finally, let's go back to the anim graph, and this final aiming with hip will be connected to the output pose. Compile, save, and let's test it. Now you can see we are not aiming, and if I aim, we change position, and then we return to the other position. Awesome. Now our character can smoothly switch between the normal pose and the aiming pose while keeping the lower body control by the locomotion system. This is a very important step because it allows us to layer animations and start building a more advanced character controller. In the next episode, we're going to continue expanding this aiming system and start adding the mechanics that will control our crosshair and shooting behavior. So make sure to stick with the series. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode. And don't miss my next video training on how to hack the gaming industry. And until next time, keep creating, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep dreaming big. I'll see you soon, my fellow creators.